Circulation. In this PowerPoint, you will learn about your circulatory system. The main functions of the circulatory system are the transport and absorption of materials throughout the body. The circulatory system moves things like blood, gases, nutrients, waste, and hormones throughout the body. This demonstrates an interaction of the circulatory system with the respiratory, immune, endocrine, and digestive systems. There are a few vessels or tubes that move all of these things around the body and make up your circulatory system. One of these things that moves blood away from your heart are the arteries. The arteries are muscular, thick-walled blood vessels that move blood away from the heart, and the pulsing or the beating of these walls helps the blood flow. Another vessel are the capillaries. The capillaries are found in between small arteries and small veins, and so they're at the end of the arteries and at the beginning of the veins. They are blood vessels that are 1 cell thick, and because they're so thin, this allows for an exchange of materials, or the nutrients and the oxygen and the carbon dioxide and the waste that we were talking about before, by the process of diffusion between blood and intracellular fluid that surrounds all the body cells. So if you see in that picture on the top right-hand corner, you can see the end of the artery, that system of capillaries, and then the beginning of the vein. So all of those thin capillaries, because they're so thin, allow for diffusion of those materials and gases and hormones to occur between the blood vessels and the intracellular fluid. Some more transport vessels that are important to know about, or more tubes that you need to know about, are the veins. The veins return blood to the heart. They're thin-walled blood vessels, and they have valves in them to prevent backflow. So if you see in the picture to the right, you see your heart, and the arrow moving away from the heart is labeled arteries, because as we talked about before, the arteries move blood away from the heart. Then you see the capillaries on the bottom, and the capillaries, like we said, were the site of gas exchange. So you can see that going on, or described in the picture. And then after the capillaries, you see the arrow back to the heart, which are representing the veins. So what creates this flow process through your arteries and the other blood vessels in your body? Your heart. Your heart has 4 chambers, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. The atria are at the top of the heart, and the ventricles are at the bottom of the heart. So you have 2 atria at the top and 2 ventricles on the bottom. By beating, your heart is pumping blood through your arteries and creates blood pressure throughout the body. Your heart doesn't really look like the heart that is pictured on the top left-hand side, but it does look like the picture in the bottom right-hand side. So what happens in your heart to create this blood flow? The top right, or your right atrium, because your atria are at the top, receive blood that no longer has a high concentration of oxygen in it from a vein called the vena cava. The top left, or your left atrium, receives blood that has a high concentration of oxygen in it from the lungs through some. So in the last slide, we talked about what happens in the heart in the atria, so in the top of your heart, and we said that the blood flows from the atria down into the ventricles through valves. So what happens in the ventricles, on the bottom right, or the right ventricle, the blood is pumped to the lungs via the pulmonary artery. On the bottom left, the blood is pumped to the body through the aorta. So again, we can review that on the right-hand side, the blood has a lower concentration of oxygen, so it needs to be pumped to the lungs to pick up oxygen. On the left-hand side, the blood has oxygen in it, so it's going to be pumped to the rest of the body so that that oxygen can be delivered to your other organs and the rest of your body. So there are a couple of useful terms to know about the circulatory system. One of these is blood pressure. When you go to the doctor, they always take your blood pressure. Like we talked about before, the heart pumps the blood from the heart into the arteries to deliver blood to the rest of your body. So the blood pressure is simply a measurement of the force on the artery walls when the heart pumps. Two other terms that you see on the slide are systole and diastole. These are two phases of the heart. Systole is the contraction of the ventricles, and during this time, greater pressure is exerted on the arteries' walls because the heart is pumping the blood out and into the arteries. And diastole is the phase of the heart when the ventricles are relaxed. The last few circulatory system terms that are useful to know are pulmonary circulation, which is circulation to and from the lungs. So we were talking before about how the heart pumps blood to the lungs to pick up oxygen, and then that blood comes back to the heart. So that circulation is called pulmonary circulation. There's also systematic circulation, which is circulation to and from the body. So we talked before also about how the heart pumped blood that had oxygen in it throughout the body and brought back blood that doesn't have as much oxygen in it from the body. That is the systematic circulation system. The last term listed on this page is coronary circulation, which is circulation in branches of the aorta in coronary blood vessels that supply the muscle tissue of the heart with blood. So just like the other muscles in your body, your heart is a muscle that is performing that pumping action and also needs the oxygen and the nutrients and the waste taken away and the carbon dioxide taken away from its muscles so it can keep functioning properly. If you can see to the picture to the right, you could see an illustration of the pulmonary circuit of circulation and the systematic circuit of circulation, as well as the coronary system of circulation.